Today I'm continuing the How to Build an Adventure Map from Scratch series. In the last video we talked a lot about how to get inspiration for your map, what map are you going to build, and that kind of thing. I talked a little bit about this, a choose your own adventure idea that I wanted to do, but I was just really struggling to get excited about that idea. Which brings me to my first point of today's video. If you're really finding yourself struggling with a map to just find motivation to go and build it because you're either not super excited about it or you're not having fun with it anymore, or I don't know, there could be a lot of reasons. Just kind of set that idea to the side or that map to the side for a little while and then go try something else. Adventure maps are the hardest maps because they take so much time to build because you have to incorporate really good design, story, gameplay, etc. I can build a death run, a dropper, or a lot of these other types of maps really quickly, and it doesn't take as much investment in it. But with adventure maps, I feel like it has to be a true labor of love. If you're not in love with it, it's gonna be really hard to finish the map. I wasn't in love with my current idea to choose your own adventure kind of thing. I think it's a really fun concept and I might build that in the future, but I just wasn't in love with it, so I was struggling to make this video. But I have been thinking about doing a specific map for a long time, and I just have never had the time or the motivation, or there wasn't really all of the pieces I needed in creative to build it, and so I've been putting it off. But I started thinking about it again, and I really wanted to build this map. And it became a thing that I was just kind of obsessing about, trying to think of how would I build it and how would I make it look cool and that kind of thing. So I knew that this was the map I needed to build because it was all I was thinking about. So I'm gonna adjust my map that I'm making to a castle in the sky adventure map. Now, I'm not just talking about any castle in the sky, I'm talking about the castle in the sky. I am a huge fan of anime, and even more specifically, a really big fan of the Miyazaki films. So those are movies like Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, Totoro, Ponyo, The Cat Returns, and a whole bunch of other awesome movies. One of my favorites of his movies is called Castle in the Sky. It's an amazing movie and I highly recommend you go and watch it if you haven't watched it yet. But I actually wanted to recreate the actual castle in the sky and make an adventure map out of it. So today we start construction on the castle in the sky. So here's a couple of images of what the castle actually looks like. You can see there's this like metallic ball underneath the ancient structures. There are these outer rings that are kind of floating out to the side. There's the like castle structure, and then there's the town on top with a bunch of trees coming out of the town as well, and there's lots of greenery all over the place. So I'm really excited to see how I can do this with combining the castle structures with the grass and the trees and stuff, and to just make it look kind of ancient and really cool. Okay, let me show you kind of what I did to build this underdome that looks kind of like a Death Star, but it's the bottom of the castle. First thing, I wanted to kind of build my scaffolding for the dome, because often what I want to do is see the scale of how big something's gonna look on the map, and so I built it out with all of this wood just to kind of see, okay, that's this rough size of what I want this dome to be on the bottom. So if you're building anything huge, I often like to build a box or something first just to see how big is it actually. And you can see me down here, I'm trying to size out a square at the bottom. Now, this was a wall that I chose to use as my flooring. So it was actually this wall right here in the middle of the screen in the Art Deco black prefabs, and I used it as a prop, which you can go into your settings, hit B, and then use as a prop. So you can use any wall, any floor, anything as a prop if you want. And then I placed all the flooring out in a straight line so that I could easily get the curve without it getting too far off of the straight line here. And then what I did is I started curving it up slowly by 3 squares, and then it would eventually get all the way up to be a half dome just by kind of repositioning them. And then you can see here what I'm trying to do is get it so it's closer to the wall, because when you're using props, it kind of gets out of line sometimes. That's why I'm using the scaffolding to kind of keep my direction, like my line, straight, as opposed to if I'm not using that, this would probably get really bent. Like it would just get really not straight. It would start pointing to the right or to the left. But because I have this wall here, like you can see right here, it was a little off, but then I could adjust it back to be straight against the wall again. So that was why I'm using scaffolding. Scaffolding is really helpful when you're trying to build big scale type things and making sure that it lines up correctly. Okay, so then I didn't want to have to do that a whole bunch of times, so I just started copying and pasting in the quadrant. So you can kind of see here, I'm starting to build out just that exact same thing. I'm just copying it all, and then I'm pasting them down. You can see right here, I'm gonna just kind of line it up and paste, and then paste, and so on and so forth until I have basically a giant half dome. But there's gonna be this gap here. There's gonna be this gap here. And I'm gonna show you what I did to fill in those gaps. Okay, so you can see here what I'm doing is I have no grid snap on, and then I just started filling in the gaps, and I didn't want it to be super uniform. At first I wanted it to all be uniform, but then as I started placing it down and testing out my build, I started to realize, you know what, that's actually looking really cool and looking more like the original castle in the sky by making it so they're not quite all uniform, and it makes it look a little bit cooler, especially from a distance. You start to see this pattern forming that is, it looks like, you know, someone built it with a bunch of metal plates, that kind of thing, and it just, I thought it started looking really cool. Okay, so then I finished that one panel, and then instead of just doing it all, the whole thing, I just copied and pasted it around. You can see this is me copying and pasting, and it made it so I built this whole thing in, you know, just really about 30-40 minutes, not even that long. It was really quickly done because of using copying and pasting. Okay, and then you can see what I'm doing right here is I'm just filling in the gaps. You can see there's quite a few gaps in this dome, like right here. You can see I'm filling that in. And I don't know if anyone's actually going to see this, but I just wanted it filled in so I don't have to worry about it later. And so that was kind of the final touch on finishing the bottom dome. Now I may come back here later and add some details on the outside of this, but for now that was good enough for me to say I'm done with this bottom dome part. I can start moving on to the castle up top. So I think an important thing in building maps is managing your time. Now something like this, basically a Death Star, this could have taken me, you know, a lot of hours just placing these individually or whatever, but I figured out a way to do this really quickly just by using copying and pasting, and then trying to be smart in how I'm placing each of these things, and using the scaffolding really helped a lot. Scaffolding? Who says scaffolding? Scaffolding really helped a lot in this situation. So try to get the most out of your time, because not everyone has 500 hours to build a map. Like myself, I usually only have about an hour a day to build on any individual map, if that. All right, so my bottom dome is done. Now I'm gonna build the scaffolding for my 3 rings. So there's the inner ring where the castle sits on, and then there's like 2 outer rings that get sequentially bigger, and have a bigger circumference as you go further out. So I'm gonna kind of build the scaffolding that those are all gonna sit on. So I'm not exactly sure how far out I need to go. I know that is max height up there. So my castle can't go any taller than that. So I'm gonna need to have distance up at the top for trees, but also have room for the castle to sit on, and a place for me to build my adventure levels in it. So I have to be careful not to use too much space with these outer walls, so I have enough space up top. So here's my measurements for my different walls. So I've got, this is going to be 30 squares long from the center, and then I've got a wall that is 3 high here, 8 high there, and then this will be 12 high in the middle. Just so we kind of have a good reference point for when I'm building this out. Okay, let me explain what I'm doing here, guys. So what I'm trying to do here is get more of a circle going around here so that it looks like a round island. And what I would do is I'm gonna build my walls out and then slowly curve them around the edges of this scaffolding so that it'll look more like a circle. Now, I don't think it needs to be a perfect circle. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. Once again, it's about maximizing time as a builder as opposed to being like, I got to get this perfect, just because I don't have all the time in the world to do this. Now, let me show you a little trick here so that I don't have to do this perfect on each of these other like quadrants. So what I'm doing is I'm going to copy all of these down. Now, when you copy large amounts of blocks like I am here, it gets really hard to manage them just right. And one little trick that I'm going to show you here is really important to copying and pasting large numbers of these things. So what I do is I copy all of those things, and then I'm going to go copy it right where I want to attach it if I'm trying to make this like a circle. So I'm going to copy this here, and then I'm going to fly over here. Now you can see here, who knows where my object is, but I'm going to come over here and just kind of line this up where I would have, like right there. So now that's perfect. So I'm going to copy that there, and it's going to attach it right on the curve that where I want, because it's pasting it kind of where I copied it, right? So I copied it right on that, and that makes it so it's easy to copy and paste all the way around. Trying to figure out how to manage these things, these large copies and pastes, can be a big pain sometimes. You can kind of see here how I'm struggling a little bit to line this one up, but once it's lined up, I know it's in the right spot, and then I can paste it. So now we look at my map, and we've got a pretty good circle there, and it'll look much better once I've placed my walls down, as opposed to just these like jaggedy things going on. So now I want to do the same thing for my two inner walls. Okay, so I think I've got my scaffolding pretty much all set for the outer rings and the inner ring, and I think that's all. I think this distance is good. I mean, this is plenty of space to really build some fun puzzle rooms and parkour. So I think I've got plenty of space here, and I think it looks pretty good. Once I put the walls down on the outside, it'll look a little bit more round than this weird shape that I've got going on here. And it's not going to be a perfect circle or anything, but I think it'll look good enough. So I think that's it for today. In the next video, we'll start building the structure a little bit and trying to figure out how to do all of that, make it look right, put in the windows in the right spot, kind of get more of the decorations going. And then in the video after that, we'll probably get more into building the levels and the story out. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. If you want to watch all of the other videos in this series, you can click right here and watch those. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, be sure to like up the video. That helps me out. All right, I love you. Have an awesome day.